Alright, looks like things are working. So let me just test reroute real quick. Alright, looks like things are working. So let me just test reroute real quick. Alright, that's good. Thanks everybody who tuned in yesterday. I was recording just the raw audio and video for a tutorial, and I messed up. I didn't make my narration track solo safe. So pro tip, if you're using Reaper and you want to make sure that your audio is still going when you solo something else, right click solo defeat, right click the solo button on Reaper and just pick solo defeat. I thought that since this had a hardware out, the solo wasn't going to affect it, but I was very definitely wrong. So I'll be doing this again. So I'm going to start in just a second here, just making sure everything's working. Sorry. And you know what? I don't have a piano teacher next door today, so it should be a little bit quieter. And I don't have a band practicing in the big room, so it should be much better. If you're here, that's awesome. If you have any questions, that really helped yesterday. Oh yeah, thank you. Who was that? Mark Garwood, who told me that I didn't have the plug-in on the screen. Yeah, thank you. So you know what? It's probably time to fix this anyway. So, oh yeah, hey Matt, thank you. So you know what? It's probably good to redo this anyhow. So we learn from our mistakes, or we. What did Glenn Fricker say? We learn from our mistakes, or we'd be bass players, right? But you know what? To me, bass players are worth their weight in gold because there's never enough of them around. So I don't give him any crap like he does. He's a brave man. All right, so let me get this started. I guess to do this the old way. Make sure everything's recording. So I'm thanks to Simon Larkin, I'm running 2 instances of Reaper so that one's recording the output and one is handling all the streams and stuff like that. It looks like it's going good. So here we go. Without further ado. Aloha, this is Pipeline Audio, and I'm going to show you how to use aiXdsp's multiband gate. Or at least I'm going to show you how I intended it to be used. And since this has been out, I've actually seen people use this in very bizarre ways I didn't expect. But, you know, the same thing happened with Reaper, so not super surprised there. So anyway, easiest way to do this, I think, and the reason we made this way, you go to our website at aiXdsp.com, go to the resources, go to the tutorials, and there's a tutorial file that's actually a set of multi-track audio, and it's got a video file. If you drop them in your DAW, they should just line right up. You'll have the video playing and the audio at the same time. One of the things that's really hard when people are first learning how to use noise gates and things like that is it can be extremely difficult to know which drum is actually being hit, especially between the toms. So this one has a video. You can actually see his hands. You can see where the stick is going. You can slow down the video and really watch it, and you'll know which tom is being hit exactly. And so to me, it's a really good visual feedback in case you get stuck and in case you get confused. One problem with this set of tutorials is that if you've ever read, you know, my rants online, I really try and impress into drummers that it's really important to be precise and to really make your toms count. Toms can be like artillery. You know, in World War I, allegedly, people got bombed so much in the trenches with that artillery that they began to tune it out. At first, you know, when they first heard the artillery coming, they'd be scared. But after a while, it's just dull background noise. And to me, toms would be like artillery in that way, that if they're just constantly going, and especially if they're just flim-flamming around, they're not as much of punctuation as they would otherwise be. So this drummer in particular, he's in a bunch of our bands here at the school. He's a little bit more sparing with his toms, and he knows the evil that you guys are all dealing with, and probably why you bought multi-band gate in the first place, of cymbals bleeding into the tom mics. So he tends to play his cymbals in a way that lend themselves not to make trouble for the toms. But still yet, the artifacts are there, and this will be a good tutorial for you to try out. And because it's not so impossible like you'd usually have to deal with, this will actually give you some confidence going forward. And as things get more challenging, at least you knew you were able to do it before. So anyway, grab this file, download it, and you should be good to go. So I'm going to pop open the session, and let's check things out here. So I'm just gonna give you an idea of what's going on here. And so this is what happens when you've terrified them about toms so much, and then you tell them, hey, I need you to play some toms. They barely play any toms through the whole thing, but there's some here. Okay, so we got some bleed right there. So let me just show you. So here's a tom. So if you're watching the video, you can see that the cymbal is actually pretty high compared to the toms. That's studio drummer setup, you know. But if I were to put a lot of high end in here, so in this case I'm going to show you with Audio Assault's exciter plugin. It's kind of like a Mutt Lang blaster here. So if I really wanted to put some high end into that tom, it's really going to become an auxiliary cymbal mic, and it's just going to get nasty. So especially if I had a compressor going, like let's say, let's see, and I got to remember to keep these video plugins on the same window. So I'm going to put our compressor on here. Let's just hammer the crap out of this, and let's let that little bit of spit through, you know, for the stick. It's like 20, 30 milliseconds or so. And let's get back on that tom fill right there. Okay, so you really got a nasty cymbal ahead of that thing, right? It's probably louder than the tom at that point, which is, yeah, that's not what you want. Okay, so anyway, so that's what you're dealing with. This isn't the best example. Usually, I know you guys in real life, you have had really bad examples that you could deal with. Probably snare and hi-hat, but mostly toms and cymbals. I mean, that's really what it's all about, right? So let's start easy. I'm gonna turn off the video for now. Let me go to kick drum, and just gonna turn the threshold down, and let's see if I didn't blow the voice recording again. Yeah, we're still recording. All right, so again, that's that solo safe thing. So just right click the solo defeat and Reaper, and you can do that. So here's pretty much the default setting of multi-band gate, and I have the threshold all the way down. So I'm just going to solo the kick, and you're going to listen to a couple kicks here. Okay, so this is going to be pretty easy because this is an inside kick mic. This is probably going to be the easiest mic you got to deal with the gate. And you could probably use a regular old gate for this. I don't think it'll be as good, of course, but you could, I think. Sort of. I mean, that's why Regate was built, right? But let's see how this goes. So the philosophy behind this gate really was that, in general, these skinned drums, drums you actually put heads on, there's a high frequency component of it, that whack, thwack, but it's really only really short. So you don't need it the whole time. And if you do leave it open, that's where all the cymbals come in. That's where all that nasty wash and mud and bleed really makes a lot of trouble, especially if you're running a compressor. You just end up turning these into auxiliary cymbal mics, and not in a good way, in kind of a nasty way. There were times where noise gates kind of acted as an enhancer when the snare opened because a hi-hat was playing. I think a really good example on that is Black Sabbath's Dehumanizer album. When he hits the snare, you'll hear the gate open up and it'll blast the hi-hat in for just a minute little bit. And it really kind of adds a punctuation to the snare in those parts. But he's using it really sparingly. And in this case, I want to keep that high end open just as long as the stick hits. Really, that's it. Even if it's got a blast to cymbal noise, it's not going to matter. That's just going to add more high end to that tom. And so if we do compress it, limit it, and really push it up, the only thing that's getting pushed up is that stick hit. It's not going to be the cymbals. It's not going to be anything else. On the other end, of course, depending on how you want to shape things, you might want your toms to last a long time. I mean, I really do, unless it's a really fast tom part. I'd like to hear that, doom, just playing all the way out. And so with multiband gate, you can make the high end really short, just as long as the stick is, and then shut it up immediately. And you can let that low end ring without making trouble. And you're going to find probably that the mid band is where you're really going to struggle, because you're going to kind of decide how much do I want of this, and the timing between what that high end is and what might actually bleed a little bit into it, and what the meat of the sound is. So generally, I'm usually using the low band crossover right around the fundamental of the drum. Generally, not always. So there's kicks that have like a really deep fundamental, and I'll put it way down there instead of on the first or second harmonic. But let's not get too crazy here. I'm just gonna play this kick, and let's take a look at what the different parts are. So I'm gonna solo the high band real quick. I'm gonna look for where we got our thwack. You can hear a tiny bit of snare in there, and you can actually see it on the drawing here. I'm okay. I'm okay with getting a little bit of that snare in, as long as I get a lot more beater. So I'm going to leave that sitting like that for a second. Let's look at the low frequency now. Here I'm hearing a lot of the junk that I'm probably going to EQ out anyway. So so here's around the fundamental of it, somewhere around 60 hertz. I could let that ring forever, and nothing's going to make trouble. I really don't care. Even if toms get in there and make trouble, or try and make trouble, they're really not going to bother anything. But I'm gonna get this up to like the second harmonic at least. There's a little bit of that tubbiness in there. I might want to get it out. I know people really love that 150 hertz area of it, but I'm not so thrilled with it. Let me see. At least on this drum. Okay. And so what's left is this mid band. Might want some of this. I might want to make the high crossover come down a little bit, but this is all taste. And you know what, I find myself more often than not just muting that mid band. It's like instant D6 sound, right? Okay, so now I'm just gonna grab the threshold. I'm gonna move it up. Okay, so let's turn down the I'm going to turn down all the holds, and I'm going to make the release pretty quick so we can hear what the gate's really doing, and you can see the visual representation of it. So you can see each of the envelope lines just following, just kind of turning off right away. This high end, you could actually make it even shorter. So let me solo the highs again. You'll notice the attack is set at 1 millisecond on most of these, and that's to keep the gate from clicking open. But if it happens on the high end, I'm not concerned. It actually, to me, adds a little bit of spank to the highs if it does click open. I'm absolutely fine with it. I know that's blasphemy, but that's okay. So I'm going to have this thing shut pretty quick. I'll definitely want it shut before that snare drum comes out, but I'm going to give it a little bit of hold. There's a section with toms right here. Okay, here it comes. Okay, so it's shut quick enough. Again, kick drum inside is kind of easy mode, unless you got a dribble foot drummer. But if you got a dribble foot drummer, you got way big problems than this thing's going to fix anyway. That's coming time to you putting in every kick by hand, or sending the band out for pizza while you bring your favorite drummer in to actually play the part. You didn't hear me say that. Okay, so now, I'm pretty happy with that high end. I'm gonna look at this lows. There's no reason at all. Okay, if this is a really, really fast song and it's going double kicks and stuff, you might want to envelope this thing down so that it just ends immediately. But I don't need to in this case. I'm gonna let this thing just tub out and thub out like a car stereo, and I'm fine with that. Now this mid-range, again, I don't really care for what's... I'm just going to turn it down. I don't really care what's happening here. You know, if I do need to EQ some meat in later on, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this turn off before the snare hits. You can hear the toms kind of get in there, but that's okay. So I'm actually going to turn this way down. If I were mixing this and I wanted some, if I was having trouble with meat, fighting between the guitar and the bass, I could use that mid band right there and just turn it up or turn it down. Right now, I don't even want to hear it. In fact, that sounds better to me. I'm just going to mute it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that kick. Let's hear that with the overheads. Okay, so what are we having? A phasing problem, polarity problem? I don't want all the pedants to get me, but... So, there's really no reason for me to have all that. I mean, if this is a jazz album or something, you know, maybe I'm going to have a lot of lows in the overheads, but I'm not gonna in this case. So some of you guys are beta testing this right now. This is our upcoming dynamic EQ plugin, and I'm just gonna high pass the lows out of this thing. Sorry. There we go. Much better. Okay. I'm okay with that. So I'm going to move on to the outside kick mic. Now this mic I might want to have a lot more of the mid-range from, and this, yeah, I'll tell you honestly, I barely use outside kick drum mics. I know it's the cool thing to do, and it's even cooler to buy a product that has like a NS10 speaker and stick it in there and whatever. But I tend not to use these. They don't tell me as much about what the drummer's playing and when he's playing it, so I don't really care. So again, I'm going to turn the threshold way down so it's just playing. I'm going to take a listen to what's going on here. Okay, so there's a lot more bleed in this track. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to engage the key listen here. So this is going to determine what frequencies the detector's actually listening to open that kick drum. And so you're probably going to think, oh, well, you know, it's a kick drum, so I'm going to make it the fundamental. And just have this like low thud opening up and closing the gate. But there's a couple problems with that. Remember that the lows are going to last a long time on a kick drum typically. They might resonate for a very long time. And the peak of that resonance may not be all that much higher than the sustain of that resonance. So it might not be a very good discriminatory signal to tell when the gate's opening and when to close it. The other problem is just like with the compressor. If you have a really low frequency waveform, the compressor threshold can actually ride the waveform shape itself, the frequency shape, and it'll be chattering on and off like nuts. So in this case, it probably would work. If you're looking at the peaks and valleys, it's looking like there's a lot of discrimination here. But let me raise this a little bit and let's just see. To me, that's a little bit better. Let me move. This looks like a good signal, so I can really tell when to open and close the gate here. So I'm going to take it out of key listen mode. Okay, and let's listen to the low end, see what it is that I want from this thing. Okay, so in this case, I'm actually going to use a lot more of the mid-range, or I might want to anyway. But it'll be like a kind of a low mid. I'm going to shut the highs off pretty quick because I really don't care. I'm getting those highs out of the inside mic. Let's take a look here. Yeah, see, this is kind of that kind of flappy thud sound that you might want to use to push the mid-range on this drum. So you might actually want to keep that. So I'm going to look at these parts. So let me see what I even want from the highs. If I'm going to use it, again, I'm going to turn the attack down. If it clicks, I don't care. On this case, I'll show you on the low end. It's not a very pleasant thing. Hey, here.
Oh, sweet. I didn't know if you're like recording something.
Oh yeah.
To bug you.
Well, this is the nature of live audio. My brother just showed up, so I'm turning down the release. This is just not going to last very long. That's okay. What are you doing, Kailua?
I wanted to go to a laundromat that wasn't crowded, and I knew there was one here.
Oh no, they're crowded here too.
No, the one by Moki's usually there's not a lot of people there. It's really dead over there. The one by McDonald's, that one is. I call that Auntie Sherlani's fucking laundromat because that's where she goes. Her Auntie Callie. Yeah, and then I tried to go to the rec center to take a shower, and they're all telling me like, oh, it's for swimmers only. I'm like, it's for the rec center people.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's only for this. I'm like, whatever. So do I have to swim? She's like, well, yeah, for longer than 20 minutes. I'm like, are you serious?
Just get in there and start swimming, man. With your shoes on.
What's that?
With your shoes on. Okay.
So yeah, that's what Newegg's or the UPS tracking number told me is coming tomorrow. But
alright, cool. It might come today. You never know with these guys.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I was thinking when I was walking over here. I was like, it might actually just come in today. I might as well just cruise and wait, maybe.
Yeah,
I got
mine.
nothing else to do till 5, so.
Mine showed up early. Alright, yeah, let me, I gotta finish this tutorial. I'm just recording the raw stuff for this, but it is live. So.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Okay.
I'll go around the store and
okay.
I'll just wait outside.
All right, so I'm pretty happy with this high end here. Again, I may not even use it on this track. So for this mid band, I might shut it off kind of more abruptly than you might think you'd want to. But again, this is just going to be that flop, 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 flop. Might have like a really hard limiter on it. And then let's look at the low end. You know, I don't know that this needs to cut off. You see the envelopes kind of riding here. Let's take a look. Let's hold it a little bit longer. So, you know, you are changing the actual shape of what's going on here. Yeah, you know, I would almost, you know, that's why we do have the mute, solo, and bypass buttons, because you could bypass that low end and not worry about it. Oh, let me show you real quick though. So I'm going to turn the attack to 0 on the low end. And let me turn this up so you can hear it better. This one's not really clicking into action. I wanted to show you the error that, well, not an error, but I wanted to show you what could happen if your attack was too short. Sometimes it'll click in when you're following low frequency sounds. But in this case, it's kind of okay, so I'll put that back down. Okay, I'm going to compare this with the inside kick. I'm going to play them together. Okay, so here's one polarity setting. Sounds like the lows are canceling each other out, I think. And what I'd rather have is the mids canceling each other out. So I'm going to flip the polarity here. I might still take more mids out. Let's see. Let's see about muting the lows on the outside kick track. Let's see. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Okay, let me try that with the overheads. So I'm just going to mute the other tracks here. So as usual, you could use that outside kick mic, even though it's, I mean, it's within a foot, I think, in this case of the other mic, but the high end of it is, it'll give you a little bit of sense of depth. I'm not usually, you know, so much of the music I record, subtleties like that may not even matter, but they matter. They may matter with what you're doing. So so many creative little things about, you know, how different parts interact. So I'm gonna move on to the snare, because this is where things are gonna get ugly. Okay, so here's the snare top. Again, I'm gonna turn the threshold all the way down. So let me find some parts. In this case, there's really not that many problems with hi-hats or anything else. So you see in the video, you see on the video, kind of a little bit hard to tell, but the hi-hat is pretty far from the snare drum. So it's really not making that much trouble. Well, let me find some. You can hear the cymbal in there. Let me find some more cymbal. There we go. Open hi-hats, the disco curse of snare drums. So here we go. This is going to be as ugly as this section gets. And this is really... I'll give you an example with Exciter on in a second here. So here, I'm going to turn some treble blasting on. It's not super bad, but well, I really like that ring and I don't want to lose it. And now we're going to really use that mid-range on that. So see how nasty that can get with all that cymbal ring in there. So let's see what we can do. Oh, sorry, I got a lot of noise outside. So let's look at, where is that ring? I'm going to find it. So I'm going to solve the mid-range. Alright, so this is really cool. I want to make sure that I can either turn up or turn down this ring, and I can change the length of it. So I'm going to leave this ringing for a while, but look in the key listen real quick, and let's take a look at what we can use for the most discrimination possible. This is where things get hard. Snares are not as hard as toms, but they can be tricky. You can see the kick peaks that are threatening. If this drummer's not in control of his dynamics, the kick peaks could easily be higher than the snare peaks. So there's a part of the snare that's the same frequency as those kicks. So I'm going to try and see if I can't get that out of there. And now it's a lot more discrimination right there. So even though that's now we're above the fundamental of the snare, but we are catching the second harmonic of it. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna move back. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up the threshold, start turning on the gate. See, now that's a way to kill your ring, right? So we're going to get rid of that. I don't want this thing making trouble though, so let's see. Okay, just like the old days with the AMS samplers, this ring is not going to have a natural decay. I'm actually going to leave the overheads to do that. Kind of want to kill it before that kick drum comes in. Okay, so let's see what's going on with the high end real quick. Okay, now you can hear this is where it's really going to make trouble with that hi-hat. Again, I'm going to turn the attack to 0. And I'm going to stop this pretty quick. I may not really want much hold on there at all. One problem you're going to have is chatter, right? Watch when this fill comes up. Where is that fill? There we go. And that's where you might want to use this hysteresis control to have it not turn off until it goes down past a certain amount. You could keep the gate chatter down a little bit. I'm not going to be super worried about this. Make the hold a little bit longer. Okay, so I want to get rid of that kick drum. Let's see what happens if I turn the attack to 0 here on the snare. Okay, so you're hearing the click on the low end, hopefully. This is why I usually default this to 1. You can make it a little bit shorter and probably be okay, but there's nothing really to be gained, I don't think, by this anyway. So I'm going to shut this thing way quicker here. Especially if you're going for that 80 snare where you just got that gigantic bottom end. You can make this bottom really short and just crank the hell out of the lows. Okay, let's see how this is together. Okay. And again, you see how abrupt that ring stop is, but I'm counting on the overheads filling that out. Let's see. Might make it a little bit mellower. And of course, that's the danger of listening in solo, right? So always make sure you listen in context too, even if you're setting a lot of stuff in solo. So now let's move on to the snare bottom. So this is going to have its own unique problems, and I'll show you what that is. Okay, so a snare drum bottom mic, you're micing the traps directly, and those things can have a lot of sympathetic vibrations with the other drums. I'll spend a lot of time tuning the toms so that they won't necessarily ring the snare drum, but the kick drum has so much energy at so many different frequencies that it's really hard for it to get. It's really hard to keep the kick drum from playing the traps on the snare drum, and you can see it in here. The actual snare hits are barely above what the kick's doing. So if I were just to, I'd probably get a lot of false triggers if I would just use the snare drum as its own input. So, or as the bottom snare as its own input. So what I'm going to do, now I've actually already done this in Reaper. Here, I'll undo this so you can see this. So what I'm going to do is route the snare drum, the top snare that's already gated, into the bottom snare mic. And in this case, I'm going to send it to channels 3 and 4. And if you don't have these channels already on there in Reaper, new channels on receiving track, but I'm going to send it to channels 3 and 4. And I'm going to use that as the detector. So if I look inside the pins for Reaper, you'll see that sidechain left and sidechain right are inputs 3 and 4. So what this really is let's make sure we got the right thing. I'm going to have the pre-fader but post-effect send from the snare top track going into the snare bottom track, and that's going to be the signal that the detector is going to see. So I'm going to turn on audio sidechain and key listen, and so it should be the gated snares track that we're listening to. So let's play that. Okay, so you see this giant cliff right here? This is obviously a gated signal, right? So this is going to be way easier to open that bottom track. This is going to be way easier to open that bottom snare mic up with. I'm going to take it out of keyless, and I don't know that there's anything I really need to do to this signal. Maybe take some of the lows out of it. I'm just going to do that without even listening, but you might have to go in there and mess with that. But here we go. So okay, so just right off the bat, there's a much better signal to use. And I really don't care about the lows on this track. The highs I might want to keep for a while, but I may not. There's some give and take on here. I'm definitely going to shut this mid a little bit quicker. But I just want that, you know. So let's see what we're going to do with the highs. Again, zero attack I'm fine with in this case. Sometimes you won't be. I don't really want that kick in there, but it's not gonna kill me. And let's check if there's a polarity issue. Oops, I can't really solo that, so I'm gonna bring the output up a little bit. Not really having, it's a little bit thinner with it inverted. I'm gonna leave it like that for now. And so if I turn up the if I put on like an exciter, it's a little bit of hi-hat spit. I could have that or not. It's not gonna be bad, I don't think. Let me put it in with the overheads and the kick drum. So I'm pretty happy with that. Could put a compressor on there and really show how nasty it would be with and without. I might do that in a second. But let's see. I'm going to move on to toms in a second. Okay. So let me show you what this thing would be before and after these gates. So let's do this in a way that we'll do this in context with the compressor. Okay, so I'm going to put our Intuition compressor on here. So let me take those gates off. Then width. Again, in this case, it's not the worst thing in the world if we didn't have it, because, again, the drummer knows to hit the snare drum pretty hard and has the hi-hat pretty far and on a different plane than the snare drum. So they're not really bleeding into each other as much as they could, but even that's a lot cleaner to me. In fact, if we were to do like more of that modern kind of snare sound, like let's say like a 5 millisecond attack or something, maybe even less. Let's just look real quick. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to put a ton of gain on here in order to make that up. You actually wouldn't want to do it this way with the mid so short, or who knows? People are crazy. But if I were to turn the gates off on this, okay. Then all you get is hi-hat wash, right? So I'm going to make this more sensible though. Let's get this back to... Again, I might make that ring last longer. I really like it. Of course, once you put all the other instruments in here, who knows? Let's slap up the kick a little bit. So this is going to have a pretty short attack. And I could actually use the limiter on intuition here to... Might further EQ this later on to get some more mids out, or might just use the mid control on the gate itself to handle that. Okay, so I'm pretty okay with that. So the real meat, what everybody's really worried about, right? Toms and cymbals. Now the issue again, I'm gonna say it again. Sorry, that sounds like a stuck record. Hey, Kristen. Nice to see you here. The issue, again, is that Jack, the drummer here, knows not to make all that cymbal wash on his tom fill. So I got to find a tom fill that's going to have a little bit of cymbal so we can actually hear it. There we go. There's some cymbals, right? So again, the very point of this plugin is to let the low end just doom if you want, but to stop the high end before those cymbals come in and ruin your day and make you look like an idiot in front of your clients. So start with the easy one, and that's going to be the high tom. So I'm just going to loop this section here. So anybody who wants to do this, remember you can follow along by going to our website, grabbing the tutorial file at aiXdsp.com and just dropping that in your digital audio workstation of choice. And of course I recommend Reaper, but I'm a little bit biased on that. So I'm going to solo the high tom track, and let's just see what we got here. So one of the reasons we got the video showing, and I'll show you this again, is because it's hard to know which drum they're actually hitting. Okay, hold on. Let me let the video catch up. Sorry. Let me play this from further back. Okay, so it sounds like he's going on to the second tom right away, but he's not. He's playing the first tom again. So in case you get stuck, watch that video. You can see what he's actually playing. Okay, so let's look at the threshold here. So here's the issue, right? The second tom is not that much further. It's pretty close. It's going to be hard to discriminate between those two. But let's take a look up here at the frequency spectrum so you really got an idea here. Notice that the high tom's got a very prominent fundamental over here, somewhere around 180 or so. And the second tom, it's going to be close, but it is going to be distinguishable. If you had like a real full-on spectrum analyzer, you'd be able to tell. You might be able to tell with the second harmonic a little bit easier. But anyway, if I limit this sucker to the fundamental, we're probably going to be okay. So I'm going to go into key listen mode here. And I'm going to filter out the lows, except for the fundamental. Okay, let's watch and see what happens here. Okay, that's a little bit better. Might be able to. That's much better. Okay. In this case, the proper tom is probably going to have more highs in it than the next tom down. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, never mind. Spoke too soon. Okay, there we go. That looks like a signal that I can tell the difference between. So I'm going to take it out of key listen mode. Okay, oops. Turn the threshold up. Ooh, see that snare trying to get in there? Evil, evil snare. Wonder how we can really ditch that snare. So that's that snare. I'm looking right there at you. So how do we get rid of you? There we go. So that's the snare's fundamental right there. I could just take it down out of here. Yeah, that does it. It's not by much, you know. I mean, maybe one day we can look into actually making more zoom in the threshold window. Okay, so let me take it out of key listen. Let's see what we got here. Now in this case with the high tom, it's not going to be all that long because you hear it. It just kind of stops. But so let's take this down by the fundamental. I'm not going to want those mids. Most of you guys, when you buy drum samples and stuff, you're buying those things where there's like no mids in it, and they stop right away. But I think the reason that these samples stop right away is because people are so used to having to gate these things so short. So let's not. I'm gonna let this thing ring. So here's that fundamental. Okay, so it's actually pretty high. And you hear it click and open, right? So we might need even more attack time than that 1 millisecond. But let's just see. Let's take a listen to the highs real quick. So I want as much stick as I can get. That's pretty cool. I don't think I want it this long, but this might actually be okay. So I'm gonna turn the hold down a bit. So watch the envelope as I change these controls. So this is probably gonna spit. I'm gonna turn the attack to 0 again. Yeah, that might add a little bit more slap to it. This is probably okay. I can probably take it down some more. See, now we're getting into that tubby. Okay. Let me hear what the mids are doing. it's just that fluty stuff. I might need it in case the track gets too thin, but chances are I just throw the mute button on. There's a little bit of tubbiness on that high tom too, but I'm not super worried. I'm gonna turn the mids down for now. I'm not really gonna care what the gate's doing. I'm gonna make it a little bit shorter, even just in case. Yeah, because you can hear that next one coming in. Okay, the whole point of this plugin though is we want those lows to last as long as we feel like them lasting. And in this case, the high tom doesn't really have that kind of car stereo kind of doom to it. So I don't mind if this thing stops a little bit short. I don't want it to be an auxiliary second tom mic, so this one might stop shorter than you'd expect. That's probably going to be. So let's see what happens if I turn the stick part up. That's not bad. So if I let me put that in with the overhead. So I'm going to turn the other toms off. Kind of like that. Okay, I'm going to give this some highs and see what happens. Maybe too much. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's move on to the second tom. So we're going to see where this one's fundamental is. We're going to compare it with the first tom. So this is so let's look at what he's doing here. So I'm going to move the plugin out of the way. So he's hitting the first tom twice. He's hitting the second tom, hitting the first tom twice again. What is this? Is this a kick? Then he's hitting the second tom twice. And then the third tom comes in pretty loud. So if you're just looking at the level on the track, it's going to be hard to discriminate. But that's okay because we have this. We have our key listen. So let's see what's going on. Okay. Go to the key listen. Definitely don't want that third tom to open it. Again, it might seem intuitive to just use these lows to open, but there's a problem of riding the waveform. Because when you're talking that low, in fact, let's do this real quick. So when we're talking about a frequency this low, if I zoom way in, I mean you can see that waveform. That detector, it's not that long. If I were to measure this, let's see. Use minutes and seconds. So if I measure these waveforms, you're moving into the millisecond territory. So that's long enough to make that threshold actually ride the waveform itself. And in that case, you're just going to get gate chatter city. It's going to be the nastiest thing. It's like going to be like those early guitar noise gates. So you don't want that. So let's see what happens if I use this lows to look at. It's not super low, so we might be okay. But let's take a listen. It's still really close, man. That low tom is getting in there. So I'm gonna move. It's a little better. It's close though, man. This is still a hard battle to fight, you know. That snare. It's how loud the snare is compared to the toms. It's always a problem. This might be okay, so let's test this. Okay, so let's start with the highs. So you hear that bow, bow, that, you know, that kind of sound. Sometimes that's what you want from the toms, especially if you're doing like electronica. You can get kind of that roto tom kind of sound out of it. But in this case, I don't really want it. I want more of the smack. And man, I got to shorten this by a lot here, right? Just want that stick. There we go. I really don't. Again, I really don't want any of these mids. Let me see where I'm. Don't really want any of that. I don't know if I want any of that. Okay, I want those lows to last, but I don't want that next tom coming in. You hear it. Dun, 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 dun. I don't want that last dun, dun. I don't want this. I don't really mind it so much, but I'm gonna mute the mids real quick. Maybe a little bit more natural of a decay. But see, now it's getting to that short. I mean, that's why this gate was made, so you didn't have to deal with that stuff. You know, because of masking, when that other tom hits, it's going to take over so much of that lows that I think we're going to be okay to cut this off a little bit shorter. It's not usually the toms, between the toms themselves, where you're going to have this problem. It's usually the cymbals getting in the toms. Let me turn the stick up. I may even want less of this, you know. You know, is this a real mix? Depending on what the bass guitar is doing, I'd probably take away some of that that tubbiness right there at what's that, around 150 hertz. It's actually the fundamental this tom too, sadly. Maybe I'd give it a little bit. Okay, so let's try these in there. Okay, something. I hope that's not a third tom hit right there. What is this? Let's see. Is that a kick? It's a kick. Okay, so whatever that shortness is, we'll deal with that. Might make this guy longer. It wouldn't matter in a real mix with the guitars and everything, but you know, it should sound good by itself. Okay, so let's go on to the third tom. Now, because I have spectrum mode on in Reaper, you can see these pink, purple waveforms. Those are low frequencies. These black waveforms, that's high frequency. So that's definitely your treble there. And you know what's going to be a high frequency that's going to make trouble for toms? A cymbal. I mean, that's guaranteed going to be a cymbal. Let's take it out of loop and see. That's a cymbal, right? So here's the cymbal, starts right here. That's what we want to get rid of. That's why this gate exists. So yeah, now we're running into that. So here we go.
Is it recording?
Hell yeah. It'll be a while.
Hey, can you use the power loads in the main room?
The what?
The power loads?
Oh yeah.
Hey, these things say they're 8 hours, but I think they're more like 6.
Okay. So there's that nasty cymbal. And again, if I were to, let's see, I'm going to turn on a compressor here. See how loud that cymbal gets? So that's the enemy right there. So let's take a look at the... Oh, nice, nice fundamental. Look how loud that is. This is going to be easy to... Oh no, I just jinxed myself. So it's... Wow. Thud. There we go. Okay, so here we go. You get the stick sound. And that's where the cymbal lives. That's what we got to watch out for, right? It's all that nasty wash that just destroys albums right there. Okay, so I'm going to make this really, really short. Okay, I don't really want it to... You hear that hiss like it's psst at you. I don't even want that. I don't want it to chatter, though. That's what I'm worried about here. So I'm going to turn the hysteresis on a little bit. There we go. Still hearing that... Psst. And if I could get this threshold just a tiny bit higher without messing up the first hit. Might not matter because that thing is going to get hit hard on the next hit. It's going to probably mask it, but get this as good as I can. Okay, and let's take a look at what the bottom is. Yeah. I'll pretty much leave that alone. Now the mids, again. Just tubby junk. I might use it, might not. I'm just going to mute it for now. And again, it's probably too much ring from this low resonance, but when I turn this highs up. And are we hearing the cymbals? Nope. So that's mission accomplished for that. So let's try them all out. Something's getting cut off here. This might actually be a tom. Man, I'm gonna turn off the effects here. Yeah, you know what? Okay, so here's probably what I would do in this case. He's just not hitting this tom hard enough, sadly. I'm gonna split this piece out and I'm gonna crank it up. It's gonna pop through the threshold, and then we shouldn't hear that dead note anymore. Let's see. This could be completely wrong though. Well, that's just a weird hit though still. I don't know. That's what happens when you're dealing with drummers. Alright, so let's go on to the fourth tom. And you see a really neutral attack. Look at that. It's barely more than there's like nothing there, man. How do you tell? It's not even louder than the cymbal. And that's one of the big problems you're always going to have is you have cymbals in the tom tracks louder than the toms are in the tom tracks. The floor tom is notorious for this. And this is going to be really nasty because that cymbal starts right almost as the third hit here. So let's listen to it. Now overall, the level is pretty much the same between the hits on the tom and the cymbals. But I'll pretty much guarantee you that when we look at the spectrum, the low frequencies are going to be way higher on the tom hits than on the cymbal hits. So we're going to find that out. Let's take a look. But look how long it lasts. You can't gate with something that long, can you? So what are we going to do about that? Take a look in the key list and see how much we can get away with. If I can get that peak in there, but I don't want the really long lasting low stuff. The second harmonic's way up here, but I'm worried that the third tom triggers it too much. I mean, this one definitely has the lows we want, but oh boy. Okay, let's see how that's gonna go. Let me just see what happens if I let some highs in. Yeah, that snares is too much. I'm gonna let some of the tubbiness in on the on this floor tom. It's gonna need it. You're not gonna have much without it. There you go. Turn off the threshold. So we want to be out before that cymbal gets here. Okay. You might actually want to have a lot more mids in here than on the other ones, but let's find out what's going on here. You may not. I mean, we're talking low now. Look, I'm crossing over like 100 hertz. One second. Hello? Hey. It's live recording the video. Yeah. Get back. Okay, so this one I want to last a long time. I mean, this is really the essence of multiband gate. It's just let that lows just ring and ring and ring. I could even put a low frequency, like a low frequency generator on it or whatever, and just really crank this thing out. It'd be really cool. Okay, so that's all four of them. Let's put this whole thing together now. Here's without the overheads. No more cymbal crap, right? So everything's coming from those overheads now. And it's probably gonna break everything, but let's just throw something in there in the background here. So now when there's some masking going on, let's see what happens. There we go. Yeah, in a mix, I think that's pretty good. Of course, I mean, there's so much you'd be doing to it, but it's a really good start there. So that is how I mean for you guys to use multiband gate, but feel free to use it however in the world you want. And